I'm the river, I'm the rain, the lonesome whistle of a train. I'm the amber waves of grain. I'm the highway, I'm the farm, fertile fields and boulevards, the hand that rests over your heart. Oh, I'm the echo of the bell that's ringing. Oh, I'm the freedom in the song we're singing. I'm the seed that's in the dust. I'm the prayer in God we trust. A place to dream for all of us. I'm America. Dance, the open window to a chance, the place where courage takes a stance. All the colors that you see, the lights from 30,000 feet. Yeah, I'm the roar of victory. Oh, I'm the echo of the bell that's ringing. Oh, I'm the freedom in the song we're singing. I'm the seed that's in the dust. I'm the prayer in God we trust. A place to dream for all of us. I'm America. I'm America. I'm the fathers, I'm the sons. I'm the footprints in the mud. I'm a shelter washed in blood. Oh, 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 oh. I'm the seed that's in the dust. I'm the prayer in God we trust. A place to dream for all of us. I'm America. I'm America. I'm America. I'm America.
Welcome to HomeFront Sitrep. I hope you're in for a great show today, because I'm just a veteran talking about what's on my mind and maybe yours.
You can find HomeFront Sitrep on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can also check out HomeFront Sitrep's YouTube channel.
Buckle up, the show is starting. Welcome, everybody, to a Sunday edition of HomeFront Sitrep. How is everybody doing? Mr. Deeds, how are you, sir?
Tired, man. Tired. No,
Yeah?
yeah,
Busy
I'm
week?
good. I'm good. Yeah, just busy. Friday we had a hockey game. We got to see the Cincinnati Cyclones win their first game of the year, so they are now 1-6. Had a huge fight break out within the first 5 minutes right in front of us. Great fight. They both got put in the penalty box for like 10 minutes. So it was a major penalty, but they still allowed 5 guys on the ice with those other guys in the penalty box, so they didn't have to go 4-on-4 for that 10-minute time period. And then woke up early yesterday, jumped in the team plane, flew to Charlotte, and then we jumped for UNC Charlotte for their pregame for their, I guess it was homecoming yesterday for them. And then I drove back, so I didn't get home until I think 12:30, 1 o'clock this morning.
Oh man.
Had to go to the shop and turn everything back in, check it back in, put it in its rightful spot, return the rental car, and then I came home and took a little nap. So yeah, I'm probably going to drag a little bit tonight. But how's everything on your end?
Everything's good on my end. As good as can be. Let's put it that way. The knee is healing. Still slow to no go on doing the bending myself, but getting there. I start PT tomorrow at the hospital. Tomorrow's my anniversary. It'd be our 19th year married. We've been together 22 years altogether, but 19 tomorrow married. So no show tomorrow night, which I'm excited about because I get to hang out with the wife. We go up to Louisville, to the big city, and hit up a restaurant there.
I'm sure she's excited too.
Yeah. Oh, she's definitely excited. But here's something that blew my mind. So yesterday, all 4 of us, the kids and myself and the wife, we went out to eat yesterday, and we went to Texas Roadhouse on Outer Loop, and we were sitting at a table, and there was a 2 young couples next to us. They had a young baby, and they had a middle or elementary school kid there as well, a young boy. And I had my Marine hat on, and he looked over and he said, "Thank you for your service." And I was like, "Thank you very much." And I just went back to, family time. And of course, my wife, she's the eavesdropper. And,
Yeah. She
the
got
young boy,
that ear did this.
yeah. So the young boy was asking questions about the Marines, and the dad was saying, "Well, they're the few, the chosen," and explaining to that, and I was like, "All right, cool," and I just let it be, and I was just focused on my family, and we were getting ready to leave, and the server came up, and she said, "Hey, your bill's taken care of," and I'm like, "What do you mean my bill's taken care of?" Because I wasn't expecting it, because that's not something that I ever expect.
Yeah.
And she said, "Yes."
And it doesn't happen as much as it used to, right? Because with everything dying down.
Yeah. So my wife starts bawling her eyes out because, somebody took care of our bill. And I had an idea who it was, but I didn't want to say anything because it just, they did it for a reason, they didn't tell who did it. So, which is fine. And then, we had church this morning. And then, of course, the wife and kids got to hang out for a little while I was back home doing my PT on my knee. And then they've been out ripping and running and getting ready for the holidays and stuff. And, this time of the year is a struggle for me, with the holidays and stuff coming up. So, but other than that, I'm hanging in there. Worried about Miss Candace, with her MS and stuff. She hasn't been able to make the shows and stuff like that. And so, it's just, living life, my friend, living life. And then, we got a great guest coming up tonight with Miss Beth Runkle. They currently live in Colorado, but they moved 14 times or 14 plus times while her husband was in the Air Force for 25 plus years. So we're going to bring her up on the stage here in just a few minutes, and we get to talk about, the book that she's published. She's also a professional speaker. She's got her degree, a master's in, let's see,
theological studies.
Yeah, theological studies, which is super cool. And they do a lot within their community there in Colorado, Colorado Springs, with the Air Force Academy and the surrounding bases there. So I'm super excited about bringing her up and let her talk about what they get to do for the veterans in their community. So
right, absolutely.
So, but no, man. So no episode tomorrow. Then we have a couple cool episodes after, coming up. Let's see. So the 24th, we have Miss Philippia Baglia. She is a British intel officer with the British Army. She's a veteran, and she started a nonprofit over there in the UK. So we get to bring her on, and
Which
then
is cool. I mean, we've discussed it before. There's not a whole lot for the Brits, right? As far as
right,
nonprofit wise, compared to what we have. I mean, they're a few and far between over there. So for her to start something and get something going to help with the soldiers and the Royal Air Force, Royal Marines, everybody that they have over there is
right.
pretty cool. So I can't wait to hear about that.
And then on Monday, we have Michael Segru, who is a former Army. I want to say he's Army officer, and he's a Leo as well, so police officer as well. Who wrote a book called Relentless Courage, which is going to be super cool. Now, we had him scheduled before, but his daughter had a big time accident and
Right.
wasn't able to make it, which we understand. And last I spoke with Michael, he said that his daughter's doing better day by day.
Yeah, she had a horse accident, right? Is that what
Yeah.
it was?
Yes. Yeah. And it was a real
Yeah.
serious accident. And so I've been praying for him since he told me that. And every time I talk to him, I say, "Hey, man, I'm continuing to pray for you and your family because it was pretty bad." And then on the 27th, we have our Tip of the Spear Veterans Roundtable, which we do
Yep.
every month
Just before Thanksgiving.
just before Thanksgiving, and that includes Homefront Sitrep, Misfit Nation, Triple Threat Vets podcast, I Am Pitts, the Decision Hour, the Oath We Took, Conversations with a Vet, and so forth. It just keeps
Yeah,
growing. We've got some great guests on there, or speakers, podcasters on there, and we get to talk about whatever's going on within the veteran community and whatever's going on globally. So the topics could range from this to that. So,
well, especially this one after, it's the first one after the election, and
yes,
the cabinet's been picked, and what other things that are going on. I mean, there's still a lot of states that haven't even decided yet, right? So I mean, I
yeah,
think right now, I think for the House, they're either right at at the halfway mark, or they're just over. But
yeah.
I mean, I think there's still 5 or 6 districts that are still not reported. So yeah, I mean, we don't get into the politics a whole lot of it, but this one is going to be probably a little bit more than the past, just because
Yes.
of what happened a couple weeks ago here.
Yeah, this Tip of the Spear is probably going to be a little off the chain for that, because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to want to talk about the election and
Yeah.
um,
Oh, and the picks for the cabinets. I mean, I
yeah.
think that's probably more going to be the topic than the presidency and the vice presidency, even though
Oh
we
yeah,
do have the first ever Marine vice president.
I know that's I like that, but my wife is like, that dude's a douchebag. I'm like, bro, he's he's a Marine. That
But but I mean, he is a Marine, but he's obvious. He's Harvard grad as well. I mean, very intelligent. So
yeah.
I mean, hopefully he does really good things as VP, and you know,
That's all we can hope for the next 4 years, is that both the VP and the president do really great things.
yeah.
That's all we can hope for. I mean, regardless if it's right or left, blue, red, whatever, as long as they do what's best for the country. That's
As
what.
long as they do what's best for the people, and
Yes,
that's who they represent overly, is the people, and
agreed.
a lot of them have lost sight of that and get into the money side of it. I mean, I don't understand how you become a multimillionaire as a politician. It's ridiculous to me,
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, they need to start working for the people again, and and put it in the right people's hands, or put it in God's hands, and lead that way.
Oh yeah, definitely. So talking about leaving it in God's hand, let's bring up Miss Beth Runkle. Welcome, Miss Beth. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to be with you. I feel so at home with y'all's flags and your coins there. You got a lot of coins, Sam. How do you have that many?
So after I retired, I got involved with a nonprofit that no longer exists, and I did a lot of speaking on post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, and the veteran suicide stuff.
Okay.
And then I currently work with a professional skydive team, so we travel around a lot, and I still do a lot of things with other nonprofits and meet a lot of people. So every
Awesome.
coin that's behind me has been given to me. Each one has a story. I mean,
Yeah.
there's probably 4 or 5 of them that have been given by this, the same person I served with, me and
Sure.
Willis served with in the Marine Corps. Now he's a police officer down in Georgia, and he sent me like the SRT,
Okay.
the dive team, the
Okay.
state police coin. So yeah, and then in turn I send him one of mine.
Okay.
So,
That's cool.
And then
I,
Sam
my-
also designs coins as well.
I do, yeah.
cool.
So I
Neat.
design and work with a couple different guys to do the production piece
Yeah.
of it.
And I'm gathered that you were on a skydiving team. So actually, I have 3 sponsor cadets at the Air Force Academy that are on the Wings of Blue, which is their
Oh, yeah.
skydiving team.
Yeah, so one of the guys on the team is an Academy grad who was
Cool.
the flag jumper at the Academy. I
Yeah.
want to say
Oh, that's really hard to do.
I think he graduated in 17, I think, from the Academy. And then one of the other guys on the team was an instructor for the skydive team at the Academy.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so
So you'll have
very
to tell the
familiar.
flag guy they just made a new rule. They can't jump with the big flag anymore.
Well, no, we're very well aware
Okay.
of that. Yeah, so
Yeah, it's kind of
that
sad.
that is hindered us a couple of times.
Yeah.
I mean, even at like the private colleges. So we jumped.
Oh,
Wake
I thought it was
Forest.
just an academy thing.
No, that's a
okay.
DoD
Okay.
wide memorandum that came down. So
Okay.
none of the military teams can do it. Well, we're not a military team; we're a civilian team.
Right.
But there are still a lot of boosters or people that give a lot of money to the colleges. Say, hey, this is not right, and this is the memorandum that came down for DoD.
Mhm.
And we have invited those people to come down and be part of the jump and learn what we do. And it's an absolute no from them because they don't want to sit there and listen to the gunny run his mouth about what US Code 4 is truly about and what it represents and the safety
Okay.
aspect of everything. So yeah, I mean, 2 places have not allowed us to do it. So I
Okay.
mean, we just jumped at UNC Charlotte yesterday with an 1,100 square foot American flag. We jumped down at Louisiana Lafayette yesterday with an 1,100 square foot American flag. We did an air show in Topeka with an 8,000 square foot American flag, and it's all hanging beneath our jumpers. So we treat it with reverence and respect, like U.S. Code 4 says. If it's unserviceable, we get rid of it. If it's serviceable, we get it flying again. So
Right.
So Miss Beth, yeah, I can't even talk. Miss Beth, can you do me a favor and introduce yourself to our audience if you don't mind?
Sure. I think the brief story I can tell is that I was married to a man who served in the Air Force for 25 years. I met him at a wedding, so we dated long distance, and he had not felt it necessary to really tell me anything what might expect to marry someone in the military. He wasn't intentionally trying to deceive me. He just really never knew anything different. So we got married. We moved 3 times our first year of marriage, and then we showed up to that next duty station. We unpacked our boxes, and he deployed to the Middle East. And I found myself just kind of saying, like, what in the world have I gotten myself into? This isn't at all what I expected. I had not had military in my family, grandparents who'd served, but not in my direct family, had pretty much lived in the same place my whole life. He would deploy 4 times in the 2.5 years that we lived there. And marriage got rough really quickly for us because I was bitter. I hated the military and everything about it. And sadly, I told him often. Through founding God, God really transformed me. He transformed our marriage. And he had us really be on mission in the military throughout the rest of those moves to do a lot of marriage ministry. But I transformed from just sitting around and feeling sorry for myself to trying to make a difference in the people around me for as long as I would be there. And we did move a lot. And I think partially that's because God wanted to teach me that he's the only thing that's permanent. Because everything in my life was constantly changing, but he wanted me to cling to him. We now, my husband is retired, but we now serve in full-time ministry to the military. So I went from hating the military to totally being called to these people. In fact, when my husband told me he felt like he wanted to retire, I was like, no, Like, this is what we do. These are our people. I don't know how to be a normal person. And clearly I haven't figured out how to be a normal person because we are still completely engaged with the military. Just doing it, from civilian clothes. We do ministry at Fort Carson, which is obviously a huge Army base, at Peterson and Schriever Space Force bases, and at the Air Force Academy, working for a ministry called Crew Military. And it's a part of Campus Crusade for Christ, if you've ever heard for that. And so we're just focused on pouring into them. I spend a lot of time with cadets. I disciple cadets one-on-one. I'm part of their large group meetings on Mondays, but I also open my home to them. And so I joke around. Both my kids are in college, so I'm an empty nester, but I have lots of little birdies that visit all the time.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I got married when I was on recruiting duty to my current wife. Recruiting duty just did a toll on my first marriage. And 9/11 happened during that first year, and I was never home because the Marine Corps went from total strength of like 190 to 210. And then I met my current wife while we were out there, and I got married and transitioned back to North Carolina. And within 10 days, I was deploying to Haiti, to a combat zone, and she knew nobody. I mean, so she ended up coming home for, I think, a month, and then went back down and got the house settled and everything else. But yeah, I know my wife can definitely relate to me being gone a lot. And within our first year of marriage, I was probably home a total of 2.5 months, and a month of that was on convalescent leave after being blown up a couple times and being sent home. So yeah, it was rough. And then I retired. She's like, "You need to find something to do. You're around too much."
Yeah, I do have to say it was an adjustment at first. Yeah, because they're, when you're serving in uniform, you're gone a lot. And even if you are in town, you're working long hours. So we both work from home now, and I kind of was like, you gotta like find a place to go. And then I kind of realized that was my problem. I had a pride issue because home had been my turf.
Yeah, you were used to doing
I
everything.
was having to share it, and I didn't like that. So God continues to work on me through being married to someone in the military, and even, but I will say transition is hard. And there didn't used to be a lot of courses for the service member. Now there are, but there's nothing for the spouse to say, how are you going to adjust to, and I feel like too, one of the reasons my husband and I are in ministries, we're very passionate about helping marriages, especially in the military, because divorce statistics are bad nationwide, but they're worse with military members. And then they're actually even worse with veterans, because they kind of get home and all the stuff that they shoved under the carpet for years and years, they kind of have to start dealing with. And then they don't want to, it's too hard. So they give up. So we're pretty passionate about trying to invest in marriages and help people, stay married. Marriage is hard, but I think military marriage or veteran marriage might be a little bit harder.
Yeah. So, I think it goes along the same lines as first responders too, right? Because, they're out there every day and they're dealing with stresses, and they leave home every day knowing that there's a chance they're not going to come home. And whether it's a EMT, a firefighter, a police officer, a correctional, officer, where military personnel, we know that chance is there. We know that, especially when we deploy into a combat zone or, strenuous training exercises. But these guys and girls go out every day with that in the back of their mind, and the families too. So
and they're so not appreciated.
Yeah.
So so to piggyback off of that a little bit, so Sam and I, we went to boot camp together. We went to the School of Infantry together. Then we went to 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines together. I got married while I was in the Marine Corps to a young lady that her dad was Army. I was introduced to her through some mutual friends of mine from back home. And we dated for about 1.5 years. Now, during that 1.5 years, I deployed all the time. Like we were either in the field or gone to
Mhm.
Bridgeport, California, or wherever. And so me and her got married, and we got married October of '99. I deployed to Bridgeport, California, December of that year, and I came home and caught her in bed with a squid, a Navy guy.
Oh, wow.
So needless to say, we were only married 3 months,
Oh.
and so we separated, did our thing there, and when I met my current wife was right at the end of my first enlistment. We started dating. I got out. We were dating. We broke up a couple of times. I went back in the military because we got recalled because of 9/11. And then after I got out, my plan was to finish my 20 in the military. I was going to go in the Army. And she had told me, she said, "Hey, if you join the Army, me and you can't be together," because she couldn't be, she didn't think she could be a military spouse.
Mm.
Because like you said, we were always deploying. We were always
Mhm.
gone doing something. We were never home, even though our home is there. We were never there. Uh,
Mhm.
so I can applaud you and your husband for making it 25 plus years in the military and staying married, because
Mhm.
Yeah.
that is hard to do, especially if you look at the divorce rate
Mhm.
compared to military compared to the civilian sector. I mean, the wife and the wife and I will be married 19 years tomorrow, and it's been a struggle uh,
Mhm.
because of my PTS, because of my
Right, and that's a huge
yeah.
problem. That's a huge problem. My husband does not have PTSD. He was a pilot, fighter pilot. Um, but our ministry does offer courses for people with PTSD. So it's a Christ-centered course. And one of the unique things about it is designed for the warrior and their spouse,
Mm, I like that.
because we've realized that usually the spouse has secondary symptoms of PTSD from the trauma that they're dealing with. Um, and we've seen actually tremendous success with really bringing healing to people. It's a 12-week course, and it's people with PTSD. We do first responder courses, but we also do military courses. And it's actually one of the most powerful things I've been a part of. It's something I didn't understand until we were part of it, but to realize that when people come to that group, that other people around the room understand what they deal with on a day-to-day basis. One of the guys said early on, "Hey, is there anybody in this room that doesn't think about killing themselves on a regular basis?"
Mm,
And nobody raised their hand because they all felt that way. And then they talked about, the addictions. And then in the particular course that we did not have any female veterans. But that is, in fact, we have somebody who works with our ministry, and she and her husband were both Army and both have PTSD, and they lead this course. But they also, in our particular course, the women were the spouses, and they also said, "There's no one I can ever talk to about what I deal with, because no one else could understand, and they would, tell me to leave." And so it was just amazing to watch the healing, that course, for them being in community, having other people that they could actually be honest about what they're dealing with. And so it's a 12-week course, and there's actually 3 courses, and you guys have probably heard of it. It's called Reboot.
yep. Yeah.
So we offer the Reboot class through the ministry that I work with. And we will do it on military installations, but we will also partner with local churches, which tends to be a little bit easier, because one of the requirements as a Reboot is you have to offer childcare and a meal, because they do recognize the importance of healing in community.
Mm,
And so the meal is to encourage that fellowship, and to encourage, the member and the spouse to build relationships, because most of them have pretty much shut down.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad you include the spouse, because the spouse is going to be more truthful than the veteran most of the time anyway.
Mhm.
Even so, if you have two military members and one is, deployable status and gone all the time and has that stressor,
Mhm.
the non-deployable spouse, or the spouse that's not deployed as much, is going to be more truthful about how their significant
Mhm.
other is. Willis and I talk about it all the time, and they came up with the thing, be somebody's stranger. And, even just this past weekend, somebody was talking to me about something. And I started opening up about my issues and stuff that I had in Iraq and
Mhm.
follow on. And they're like, oh, yeah, well, me too. And this, and this. I didn't know who that was. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know my background. I didn't know theirs. But if I go home to Maine and see the guys I grew up with, I don't want them to have a different opinion of me because of the things I've experienced,
Mhm.
or what's going on with me at the current time. So, I can see, both sides of, the veteran just kind of being like, until they all get together
Mhm.
and, like-minded people are going to talk about something, or the one-upsmanship of, hey, I got blown up twice. Well, yeah, well, I got blown up
Oh,
3
yeah.
times,
Well,
so
and it seemed like they all had TBIs.
yeah.
Yeah, they all had really also experienced some really tragic things, not just related to war, related to
Yeah.
being in a war zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really, again, it was the most powerful thing, and we had multiple people in our course who'd done every kind of medication. They've tried all kinds of counseling. They've done everything the VA offered, and we're still not whole. We're still really suffering.
Yeah.
And just to see, it's been 4 years now. It's still regularly in contact with these people, and they're not perfect, because I don't know that you're ever totally healed. But just to see their marriages are together and they're still around,
Yeah.
and they're still fighting,
Yeah.
for their marriage and for healing.
Yeah. PTS and all of this, you'll never be completely cured from
Yeah.
that. For me, doing this podcast helps me with my PTS
Yeah, because you're talking about it
because I'm talking about it. The more I
with
talk
people that
about it,
understand.
right,
Yeah.
the more I talk about it, the easier it gets. And then plus my wife will chime in and listen. She don't watch all episodes, but she does watch quite a few of them.
Mhm.
And she'll find out some stuff about me that I won't tell her.
Yeah.
And we talk about this all the time on the podcast is we as veterans, we want to protect the ones we
Mhm.
love the most. So that's why we come up with hashtag be someone stranger, because
Mhm.
we're more apt, even as humans, just as humans, we're more apt to talk to a complete stranger than the ones we love the most.
Yeah.
And then we also talk about, family members of veteran or military member, whether it's male, female, whatever. They serve just as well as their counterpart.
Mhm.
It might be in a different capacity,
Mhm.
but they serve. Children serve as well. And a lot of organizations out there, I have noticed, don't focus on the family aspect of things.
Mhm.
They focus strictly on the veteran,
Yes.
which is never a good thing, because a veteran could be going through something and their wife and children are going through the same thing, but a little bit differently than
Mhm.
the veteran. So we need to focus more on the family aspect of it, and that's what I love about what you guys do when it comes to your ministry. Is like, I know at my church where we go to church, we have the main church itself, and then we have the small groups
Right.
within the church, and small groups really work.
Mhm.
And because like my wife, she's in a couple of the women's ministry groups, and then my children are in the HSM high school ministry, and then that's a large group, and then they break it down into small groups from there,
Mhm.
and they try to put, like, my daughters are in a group with other veteran children.
Oh, great.
That way they can say, "Hey, well, my dad, he's quick to anger because of
Mhm.
this PTS," or,
Yeah.
he snaps. And then the children of the other veterans could say, "Oh, well, my dad does the same thing." And
Mhm.
then they can kind of work it out together,
Yeah.
and they can say, "Oh, well, this is my dad's trigger point. Hey, Joni, how are you?" And then, the other child could say, well, this is my dad's trigger
Yeah.
points. So they kind of figured that out on their own, which
Mhm.
is good because I don't want my daughters and I don't want my wife to walk around on eggshells because my PTS has got worse,
Right.
my
Mhm.
anxiety's got worse, or my hypervigilance has got worse. Like Sam, he tells a story when he first got back home about I'm it, that's his story to tell, but I don't want my kids to ever fear, when they come in to wake me up if I'm going to do something off
Mhm.
the wall. And Sam knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so doing the podcast, it helps minimize. It don't eliminate.
Mhm.
Plus I'm going through therapy. Um, and my doctor's like, "Oh, well, you got chronic PTS." Because there's different levels of PTS. You got small versions of PTS, and you got chronic PTS, and
And there's different categories too. So
yes,
you've got your different, you got your 5, 6 different categories, and you got your different levels within each category.
Yeah, we like
So
to call it PTSD and other invisible wounds of war.
yeah. So it's definitely, for me, I'm not super religious, but I do believe in God. Like I
Mhm.
don't believe you have to go to an institution to believe in God.
Mhm.
Like my wife, every Sunday she's at church. I I go every other Sunday. And for me, I can be here at my house and sit up and look at this, look up at the sky and pray to the man upstairs, because I don't believe you have to go to church to get God. Uh,
Mhm.
the building is not the church. The
right,
people are the church.
That's
right.
right.
Right. And I love our church, our connections minister. He's a army veteran, and he's amazing. And I talk to him anytime I see him. I go up and say, "Hey, how you doing?" and see what he's doing within the community. And I was like, "Hey, do you need any help with anything?" Because I like to volunteer for organizations that are out helping the veteran and their families.
Mhm.
And Marcus, he's a amazing guy. And they do a lot within our county here, Bullitt County. And yeah, so I love what you guys are doing. So tell us a little bit about your book that you recently, it was October, it was released, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah. So, first of all, I just want to mention that one of the unique things about the reboot course that we partner with is that it addresses that there is a soul wound that happens from PTSD, and really leads you to God. And I think a lot of the other things don't address that. So I just want to mention that. And I would encourage people to check it out if you want to find a local group. Um, Most of our ministries across the USA will offer it, but so does Reboot. You can just go to their website. We just partner with them, and use that to help serve the chaplains and then the veterans in our local communities.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't read books anymore. I listen to them, and
yeah.
I can't remember which book it was, but I was listening to one. It was probably last year, or the year before, but they talked about every service member that goes to war, conflict, whatever, sees
Hmm.
traumatic events. Each traumatic event is a different wound on the soul,
Hmm.
and you have to heal your soul before you can heal everything else.
Yeah.
So
So I would just, I
you're the
can't
second person that I've heard. It's a
say
soul
that.
wound. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again, my husband doesn't have it. But witnessing the healing that happened, we had 20 couples in our group. I totally believe in it, and I would highly recommend. I know people have tried a lot of different things, but one of the neat things about the courses is that they do meet as a small group every week. But in addition to that, um, our group separated with the service members meeting and then the spouses meeting. And that's where some of the raw, honest stuff came out,
Yeah.
that also helped them. And then they realized they weren't alone. But yeah, you mentioned that the family serves too. And I think that's, before I talk about the book, I think that's important to understand is that initially when my husband, was serving in the military, was gone all the time. I was kind of like, resentful because I was like, this is your job. Why does your job get to, say where we go and what we do? And, why does my job not matter? Um, and I was somewhat living in his shadow. I had been very career minded before I had married him, but when you move 3 times in 1 year, it makes it harder. I still did continue to work until we adopted our child, but one of the things that I realized was that it wasn't just a job for my husband, that it was a calling. And a calling is defined as something that someone feels a special duty or obligation to perform. And when I began to see that and see that my husband was called to serve his nation, and it was very important to him, but I also, because I came to understand faith in God, I did not have that when I married my husband, neither did he. I also saw that if God in his sovereignty had chosen for me to marry this man that I met at a wedding that I didn't understand anything about, that I too had a calling on my life. And I didn't wear the uniform, I didn't have the weapons, but I had a calling, and it was to support the service member, but to be on mission to impact people's lives around that community. The people we lived near on base, or when we lived off post, the people around there, and really just impact them. And, Willis, you mentioned small groups, and that's one of the things I began to do. My husband and I started leading small marriage groups, but I also started leading other women in Bible study because I knew we needed community. And instead of having a negative attitude about the lack of community, I just began to create it, and really saw my mission to serve the military spouses around me by offering them community, fellowship, but also pointing them to the sovereign God, who I believe is the person they can trust in the midst of their chaos and uncertainty. So all those years that I was leading Bible study sitting on the floor of my base house, we would study different books of the Bible. But I remember saying, I sure do wish somebody had written something to specifically address some of the unique concerns of the military spouse, constant moving on the go, everything changing, the military, changing your plans, your spouse working late, your spouse deploying, not being able to have a career, all the things. But I wanted something that was going to be based on the Bible. And then when COVID happened, I enrolled in seminary, and that's because it's part of serving with crew military. I do have to have some theological training. And that had also shut down due to COVID. And so another option we have is to attend seminary in lieu of those theological training courses. And so I started my seminary degree and really just found that I loved it. I love the Word of God, and I was being equipped. And so through that process and doors that God opened, I really felt God telling me that He was equipping me to write that book that I wanted all that time. The book is called Another Move God, and it's a book that takes the reader through Genesis 12 through 22 and the life of Sarah and Abraham. And then it gives a lesson from the Word of God for the military spouse. I think that Sarah was very similar to a military spouse. And I'm not a normal person. Normal people might not see it this way, but I'm a military spouse. That's who I am. But when God told Sarah and Abraham to go to a land that He would show them, that's a PCS. When Abraham went to rescue his nephew Lot for the 4 kings and his armies, that was a combat deployment. They were constantly on the move. They went from Ur to Haran, down to Canaan. They went to Bethel. They went to the Oaks of the Marm. They went to Egypt. They went back to Bethel. So they're always on the move, and only I at least had the military movers when I chose to, or a U-Haul truck when we did a Diddy move. They're doing it on the back of livestock, and they're living in a tent. I felt like I lived in a tent sometimes because of all the, we did a lot of camping in an empty
some of the base
house.
housing. Some of the base housing is,
Yeah. Well, just think about the mildew mold issues we have, right? I mean, it is, we lived on base about half of the time. And honestly, I wish we'd done it more because the community was so great. But sometimes you go, this is just a terrible house, you know?
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
And, you know, the next time you say, we're going to live off base and not have a terrible house, but then I miss the community. And so we would go back to, you know, thankfully, I do think that they've improved the housing a good bit.
Yeah.
There are still, you know, obviously some issues that need to be worked out, unfortunately, with mold.
Yeah, the barracks more than like on base housing, I think, because I know just before
Yeah, those
I
are still an
retired,
issue.
yeah, just before I retired, Camp Lejeune in the surrounding bases. So, what's it? Oh my goodness, Cherry Point and New River and Johnson. So a lot of those were upgrading their
Mhm.
base housing from the 1960s,
Yes.
70s styles housing to newer housing.
Mhm.
So they
We
were
didn't get to
changing a
live in
lot.
any of that. We were always the
Yeah.
old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so these new houses I see now, I'm like, "Man,
Yeah.
you guys are living very well."
Oh yeah,
Yep.
they're living nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, but mold and mildew will still be a problem. I mean, especially we have all this historic housing, you know,
Yeah.
which has a great history. And they're beautiful, but they're moldy.
Yeah. So your book's been out since October. How many book sales have you had since it's been out, and what's the feedback that you've been given on it?
Yeah. Well, I do not know exactly. I was traditionally published, and that means that all those numbers and stuff are not in my hand. And Amazon, there I have an author page that I can go and I can see that it's selling, and it's basically like a chart. I can see it's like the stock market, you know.
Right.
But honestly, I did not write a book to make money, and I'll be honest, you don't actually make money writing a book.
Right.
I
Right.
have spent more money than my advance, doing a website, social media, you know, computer help, and I did it all on the cheap because I'm in ministry, so we don't have a lot of extra money laying around. But thankfully, my husband's been very supportive. And he has just said, you know, spend what you got to do because this is ministry. This is basically a way for me to impact more people than I do with my in-person ministry. And it, you know, the goal with the book is get military spouses to see their spouse's job as a calling, and then trust God with all the uncertainty, all the difficulty. Go to Him as their source, you know, of water, of life, and embrace it. Embrace it as a calling for them as well, but to impact people. And, you know, I had to really just get off of my pity party that I was having. And then, you know, realize this is a great nation and freedom is not free. And so, yeah, my husband made sacrifices, but I made sacrifices too, but not be bitter about those and be willing to make them because we do live in a great nation. And then, you know, for me, I raised children, didn't work for a number of years, but I was very busy impacting the people around me and trying to be a source of hope and encouragement to people that, you know, don't have the mindset that I had, you know, to really be impacting others. And so that's what I want to continue to do through the book, but also show people that God's word speaks to the military spouse. I actually it came to a relationship with Christ, understanding faith in Him in the book of Genesis. It was the very first time I'd ever opened the Word of God, and it was Sarah and Abraham's story. And I first of all understand the plan of salvation, you know, what Jesus did for us, and that I was a sinner who needed to be saved. But I also felt incredibly seen by God that He would put me in this story of a woman who had so many parallels. And I'm also an infertile woman like Sarah. I just felt like this God of the universe that I don't completely understand could cause me to the very first time I opened the Word of God to see a military spouse. Again, I'm not a normal person, but all of a sudden I just saw God gets it. He gets my life and He gets the difficulty. And it's even addressed even in the beginning of the Bible.
So I'm on Amazon right now. Just looking at some of the reviews. I just put one
Oh,
of them.
yeah. I didn't answer that question.
I just put one of them here,
Okay.
and everything that I've seen right now, everybody is loving the book.
Well, I do have to say that right there is an endorser's comment. That's not a review.
Okay.
But yeah, the reviews have been great. And honestly, as I went through this journey, it's been hard. It's a lot of work to write a book and market it. Even though I'm traditionally published with a great publisher, I'm with Lifeway. Um, they don't do any marketing for you if you're an unknown author. So it has been a lot of work. But I always said if there was one military spouse that got encouraged and had a perspective change, then it would have been worth it. And I have gotten lots of friends, things spread in the military via word of mouth. So that's the main thing I've done, is to go to my people who know me from my husband's 25 years or the ministry that I do now and just ask them, hey, would you share this? Would you let people know? And so I've gotten a lot of friends who've sent me screenshots of a message of someone that they shared it. So I don't know this person. And they've said, wow, I feel incredibly seen. I read her and it's like I'm reading my own thoughts, but she has something hopeful to say, comments like that. So it's all worth it. I have gotten really good feedback that people feel that I am authentic with the things that I struggled with. It's very vulnerable to write a book. And I just kept saying, I don't really have anything to say if I'm not truthful.
Well, and especially if it's about you, right? So
Yeah.
now you're opening up you and your husband's life for
Yes.
everybody. So yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that's
there are some stories in there that if you were to read it out loud right now, I'd be super embarrassed.
Mm.
And it's funny because like you write a book, and it's going to be out there, but until it is, and like someone that I know through the ministry I do, she's a cadet, and she's like, "Hey, I read your book. This story, like, did that happen?" And it was like, "Oh, yeah,
or you
it
get that
did."
one older friend that you haven't seen in forever, and they give you a call. Beth, did you just really write about that? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it was like the first time it seemed super real that she had read it and then was like, "Did you really act that way?" And I was like, "Yeah, I
Yeah.
really did."
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, military is really hard on the spouse,
mhm,
whether the female's the vet or military personnel or the male's the military personnel. Military on a overall as a whole on a marriage is very, very strenuous.
very.
And if you don't have something to anchor to,
Mhm,
in your case, your anchor is God. That's yours and
absolutely.
your husband's anchor. And a lot of Americans, we've gone away from him being our anchor. I
Mhm,
know that was the message in church last weekend, was for God to be your anchor, because
mhm.
don't anchor yourself on a piece of driftwood in the ocean, because what's going to happen with that driftwood? It's going
It's
to
gonna
drift
keep pulling
just
you.
like you're going to
Yeah.
drift.
Mhm,
So you want to anchor yourself not to a false idol. You
mhm.
want to anchor yourself to something that's going to be a constant for the rest of your life. And the good Lord's word is what's a good anchor. What's the best anchor. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's what the book is based on, but each day I share a bit of my story and how that relates to this scripture and, painting the parallels like,
Yeah.
um, you know, uh, moving, I'll tell a story of how hard it was or deployment. When I just cover deployment, I talk about my husband leaving and watching the afterburners and how devastated I was to know he's just gone off to war.
mm,
But then I bring him back to the Word of God. I give them some reflection questions and then a prayer to really help ground them in God is that anchor, and His Word is that anchor.
mm,
But hopefully, one of my biggest hopes is that other military spouses will see their life is covered in the Word of God too, and that God does understand it and he allows it, and if he allows it, then, like, learn the lesson that he's got from you.
mm,
And, one of my prayers I learned was, "Okay, God, help me learn this lesson quickly so we can move on from this."
mm,
Um, but there was a lot of hard times, and I our marriage would have never made it, if I had not become a believer because I hated it, and I was I was done.
Yeah.
And I'm just super thankful that we did get into Bible study and understand. I had been raised churched. I understood. I knew a lot about God. I knew a lot of information about Him, but I really did not see myself as a sinner in need of being saved. I kind of was like, I'm not an axe murderer, so therefore, like, I'll go to heaven. And that's not God's standard. And so
No.
I never really understood that. And it wasn't until, when I did that first Bible study on Genesis that I understood. And I'm just so thankful that my husband and I, found the Lord, because I don't really think there's any hope. And honestly, me without Jesus is really scary. I was really hard to be married to.
Mm, mm. Well, Miss Beth, I want to thank you for coming on here and hanging out with us for this hour. It's
I
been
can't believe it's been an hour
I
already.
know it's gone by really, really fast. Yeah, I thank you for what you are continuing to do after your husband's military service and what you're doing for the military community in your in your neck of the woods, and the veteran community in your neck of the woods. It's something that's probably needed more throughout the country. I know Mighty Oaks is another
Yes,
big,
I'm familiar with them.
faith-based organization, and they do really, really good work as
Mhm.
well. I can't wait to see what you and your husband continue to do, because I'm gonna follow your journey. Um, I sound like that watch guy, Love Your Journey, but I'm gonna follow your journey to see to see where you guys go from here. And I'd love to have you back on, and say next year sometime, and just talk about, just follow up with you, and see how your journey has progressed since today. So
Great. Well,
but
yeah, I love it. And I want to say to Sam and you, Willis, thank you all for your service.
thank you.
You not only did you guys serve, but you both have continuing wounds of that, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So, um, I did not appreciate my freedom until I married someone who wore the uniform. But our freedom is not free. And so
Great.
thank you. And thank you to all of your listeners. We live in a great nation, and it's because those of you who wear the uniform, who do answer the call to go and to serve your nation. And so I'm very thankful. I'm thankful that, God allowed me to meet this military man. And so I could do the journey. We love military people. Obviously, we can't get away from them. Um, yeah. So I appreciate what y'all do, and I appreciate how you're serving your communities. And you're serving the veteran community and those who have, um, family members who've made the ultimate price, and those that are continuing to do it with their life suffering from PTSD.
Well, thank you.
you.
Thank you very much for that. But is there anything else you want to hit on before we let you go?
Yeah, the only thing I would mention is I do blog. So BethRunkle.com. That's RUNKLE. And it's all for military spouses. That's what my own personal ministry is focused on. I do have a lot of content on military marriages out there. I have a really good article on overcoming bitterness and resentment, and 10 steps to do that. So I just really want to encourage those other military spouses that are still in the fight. Again, they're not wearing the uniform, but they're fighting by supporting their warrior.
I love it. I love it.
Absolutely.
Well,
Do
thank
you
you
have
again.
any? Are you on Audible, or any plans to go audiobook right now?
So it is an audiobook. Yes. You can get it out there. It is Kindle, hardcopy, and Audible.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of the younger military spouses, they don't read books either. I know Gen Z doesn't really read books; they listen. So yes, it's
Well,
out
I'm not
there.
in that Gen Z. I just, too many times being blown up, and I just can't grasp the reading anymore. So, and I do a lot of driving with the skydive team, so that's what I do. I think I did like 8 chapters of my book last night on the way back from North Carolina.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's an AI voice. It's not me, unfortunately. I'm an unknown new author. The fact that I got traditionally published is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And really an act of God. But they would not put the money into me doing it as an unknown author. But yeah, it is out there. And I also am on socials. It's Beth Runkle Writes, Beth period Runkle period Writes. And I put content out every single week on a specific topic. So I'll talk about reintegration after deployment, military marriage, helping your kids deal with their mom or dad, being in the military, all kinds of things like that. I do put out faith-based content, but I also put out a lot of just super practical, like anything I do, I'm like, this is what I wish I would have known.
Right. Nice. Great. Yeah.
So
Thank you so much.
Beth.runkle.writes.
Yes. And that's Instagram and Facebook. And
Awesome.
I usually put out 5 days of content. And I have guests on my Instagram Live. I have a guest every week that talks about the topic. And I also do have a YouTube channel where all of those interviews are. And so I actually bring in other expert military spouses or people that serve them and get them, for example, we never did a full ditty. So I don't want to tell people how to do a ditty move. So I bring in someone who that's what they do. They do full ditties, which
That's
that's
all I
kind
ever
of the
did.
way you got to go now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just bring in experts to come, help teach people different things. I had a girl come talk about how to get all this free travel stuff as a military member. So, and I blog on that stuff too. Usually I'll blog on what I had the interview on because I've already got all this content.
Heck yeah.
Nice.
Heck yeah. Well, Miss Beth, thank you for coming on here and hanging out with us. And I can't wait to see how your journey goes from here. And can't wait to have you back on in a couple months and just to see how your journey's going.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on because a lot of people don't minister to the spouse. So I appreciate you guys being willing to do that.
Well, you're
Oh,
very, very
absolutely. I mean, we're both married, so we both understand some of the struggles of a military spouse. I'm not going to say understand fully, but I do understand the struggles of the spouse. So it's greatly appreciated. And thank you for your service, your sacrifice as well.
No, it's
Yes,
my
ma'am.
pleasure. Thank you all so much.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too.
How cool was that, Mr. Sam?
Where was she 20 years ago?
I know, right? I definitely could have used her 20 plus
Oh,
years
my
ago
goodness.
because literally my first wife, man, um, like literally we got married October of 99. I brought her home for Thanksgiving that year. And on the way back to North Carolina, back to Jacksonville, she said, I'm never coming back to Kentucky. I knew right then that it pretty much was over, but I was still trying to be hopeful because I was, my mom and dad was divorced at a very young age, and I didn't have a really good childhood growing up because of that. So I never wanted to get a divorce. Like that was never my plan. That's like I tell my current wife, I'm not going to divorce you. You're going to have to divorce me. It's just we're going to have to make it work, or you're going to have to leave me. And when my first wife told me that, hey, I'm never coming back to Kentucky, I kind of knew it was over. But when I got back from that deployment to Bridgeport and caught her in bed with that squid guy, that that just sealed it.
Yeah, I
Sealed
mean
it for me.
that's. I mean, at that point, it's not like you.
Yeah, I didn't have a choice after that.
Yeah.
Once a cheater, always a cheater. And the bad thing is I drove up to my best friend Jason Gray's house, which we went to high school together. Then he joined the Marine Corps a year and a half before I did. And then I joined, and I would hang out at his house during like School of Infantry on the weekends. I would go out to their house and hang out. And that's kind of where I got introduced to this chick. And so after I caught her in bed, I drove up to their house, which was like 6 houses from mine, and knocked on the door. And his wife Belinda opened the door, and she said, "Hey, I got something to tell you." I said, "No, you don't. I just caught her." She goes, "Yeah, she's been cheating on you the whole time." And I was like, "What do you mean the whole time?"
Why didn't you say something back then?
Yeah,
It's
I was like, "You let me get married to her knowing that she was cheating on me the whole time." I was not very happy, but that's where I went down that rabbit hole of started where I was drinking way too much. And the Marine Corps said, "Hey, you're an alcoholic," and
you got to go to class.
yes, yeah. So, but no, I love, my wife grew up in the church, kind of, like Beth did. My wife was Catholic, and she grew up, going to church. She went to Catholic elementary, Catholic high school, Catholic college. but now we go to Southeast Christian, and my wife just got baptized by my 2 daughters, because my 2 daughters got baptized first in the Christianity. Now, granted, they were raised all the way up to 8th grade. They did everything Catholic until 8th
Yeah,
grade.
the catechism, CCD, all that mess.
Yeah, they did all of that, and once we started going to Southeast Christian, they both were like, "Hey, we want to be baptized as a Christian." So they got baptized, and they talked my wife into getting baptized. And I was baptized as an adult. So I went through RCIA, which is the Rite of Christian Initiation, something I forget. As an adult, so the wife and I can be married in church. So I can't be rebaptized as a
Right.
Christian, because I was done as an adult. So, but no, I love what the small groups are really amazing, because they work. I could see a difference in my wife, because she can go talk to these women that are in her women's group, and talk about the struggles that she faces being a veteran's wife, because I know I'm difficult to live with. Trust me, I know, because it's hard for me to live with myself sometimes. But for her and my children to understand, my triggers, and be able to talk with like-minded people in their groups, has helped big time. So, but yeah, no, I love what they're doing, and she Beth, Miss Beth is an amazing person for what she does. So,
Yeah, and I want to go back to something that you said earlier about some of the nonprofits not including the families, and I've been involved in the nonprofit world since I retired, and there is some that don't, and there's some that do.
yeah,
And and I've talked about it all the time. Anytime I talk about post-traumatic growth, you got to heal yourself before you can heal anything else. And we've watched, guys, girls, whatever, veteran come into the event with their family, and they're not focused on the healing that's supposed to be happening right then and there within them. They're more focused of, where is my kid, where's my wife, so they have that distraction still.
yeah,
Right. So I think that you start working on yourself, you get yourself to where you're semi good, and then you introduce the family and include the family into the event, and then let them get to know some of the other families, and get the wives and the kids, get their little network to going. And then the veteran doesn't have to worry about the spouse. The spouse doesn't have to worry about the veteran. They don't have to worry about the kids, because they're around other kids of other veterans or first responders. So I think, it's you gotta heal yourself first, before you can really start healing anything else. Because, if you just go right into working on the family, that's a lot of pressure for some people. You need to work on yourself first.
yeah. Self-care is very needed. 'Cause I was talking with a guy on TikTok that just yesterday. He started a nonprofit, and he went hog wild with it. I mean, just head over, addicted. I'm going to do this, this, this,
Yeah.
this. After 6 years, he got burned out,
Yep.
because he didn't do self-care. He didn't take
Yeah.
care of himself. So he put the nonprofit on hold, and 2 years later, he's like, "All right, I'm about to restart, revamp."
Yeah.
But now he's like, I learned my lesson. I'm going to focus strictly on this, and let other things fall into place as it goes.
But I mean, as the CEO, the director, whatever, the president, whatever you want to call it, you can do everything,
Yeah,
but bring in people to assist and help.
Right.
So with Blue Skies, for 8 straight years, I was at every event, every fundraiser, every PR thing, and I got severe, mental fatigue, compassion fatigue, and I had to take a break. And I told him, like, listen, I'm stepping away for a bit. It's not for good. I'll be back. I just need some time for me.
Yeah.
And I took probably a 1.5, 2-year break, and I would still show up at some stuff. I mean, especially if the team was involved, because it is, the team's nonprofit. But I wasn't involved as a used to be. And then this year I went back as a veteran ambassador and had a really, really good time because I was only focused on 1, 2, 3 different guys that were there that I knew that came into the weekend because I, say, hey, fill out this application. You'll have a great time. I think you'll get a lot out of it. You'll get the healing aspect of it. And so I had fun and I only had to worry about one dude instead of 20, 30, 40. And, they from the time I left to now, they've changed a lot of things within the nonprofit and where the event's held, how it's held. And it makes it more manageable and it makes it more personable.
Well, that's good. So if you are a veteran and you're in crisis, 988 star 1. We talk about it all the time. And I hear a lot of negative things about 988 star 1, but I also hear a lot of good things about 988 star 1.
I hear more good than bad, but when I do hear the bad, it's I didn't like the person I was dealing with, so I just hung up and called back, got somebody else, and they were great.
Yeah,
right. And it doesn't matter if you get 3 or 4 people in a row that you don't like, hang up and redial. Somebody else will answer.
and you can go online. You can chat with them online. You can text them. You can call them. And if you don't like Sam, like Sam just said, if you don't like the person you're talking to, disconnect, reconnect. You'll get somebody different each time. But reach out. This right here, this is what we talk about all the time. Hashtag be someone stranger. 988 star 1 is your stranger, or Sam's your stranger, or I'm your stranger, or somebody random in your community could be your stranger, or you could be someone's stranger. And what I mean by that is when you're talking to people, ask them how they're doing. And if they say, I'm okay, I'm living the dream, I'm hanging in there, something that we all say, even though we're all tore up inside, ask that next hard question. Hey, how are you really doing? But you have to be ready for that conversation because that conversation could be a 5-minute conversation, could be a 3-hour conversation, could be a 5-hour conversation. It could even go longer than that. It just depends. But you have to be ready for that conversation. If you're going to ask them,
and sometimes people just want an ear. They don't want you to fix them. They just want to get whatever's inside of them out.
Yeah. So let's play that commercial real quick. And the funny thing is, I was reading that board. I said probably about 2 or 3 of those today. For one, my knee. I got my staples out just recently, and my knee has been bothering me a lot since I got the staples out. And
well, because you're bending it more because you're not in fear of the staples ripping or tearing the skin. So
right,
you're using it more than you did the past few weeks.
yes. So, but I'm still stressed about the knee. I'm stressed about starting PT tomorrow at the hospital because I know it's going to be painstaking. And the funny thing is like when I went to when I was getting my staples out, they gave me hydrocodone. Which has never worked. Like my body, it just don't work for me. Like I can take 2 of the pills and still feel pain. Like it just does not do anything for me. So I asked the nurse practitioner who was taking the staples. I was like, I said the hydrocodone don't work for me. I said it never has. It never did when I had kidney stones. When they gave it to me, it has never worked. What's the next step up? And she goes, well, there is nothing else above the hydrocodone. I was like thinking to myself, I know better than that. And she goes, well, I can give you tramadol, but that's less than the hydrocodone. I was like, no, don't even worry. I just take ibuprofen. That's my regimen that I was on beforehand when I was dealing with that pain. But she's like, well, we can't give you anything stronger than hydrocodone. I was like, bro, you used to be able to get Tylenol that was coated in hydrocodone over the counter I said, that stuff just it don't work as a pain reliever. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But so I'm dreading going into doing PT, only taking ibuprofen or Tylenol to relieve the pain. But I have to do it because I need to get my knee bending on my own, and I have to re-strengthen. Like I can bend it, but I can't bend it. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So, and then I was talking with a guy on TikTok. His name is Anthony. I'm just going to say his first name. I'm not going to say his last name. He lives up in Mass, and he got denied on his disability. Like he was trying to get his disability rating and stuff like that. So he asked me if I knew anybody that could help him out. I said, yeah, I got a great person that lives down in Florida. She's been married to a lieutenant colonel, retired for 35 plus years. She's a nurse practitioner. She can help you start your VA process and get everything lined out for you. So he emailed at askmonica0@gmail.com, and she is in the process. She's got a Zoom meeting set up with him. She's going to help him walking through the process, so that this guy can get his rating. So
I mean, I was stubborn. I'm like, I'm gonna do it on my own. I can do this. You might be able to think that, but there are so many resources and so many people out there that know
the ins and outs.
the VA system, right? And a lot of time it's the verbiage that you're using. You know, I'm a high school educated. That's it. That's
Yep.
it. I the only terms medically I know is the terms that have happened to me, right? But even then, when I'm talking to the doctor about it, I can tell him the procedure I had, but there's certain verbiage some of the doctors want to hear when they're transcribing. And then when it goes to the person that's actually reading that to give you your rating, they want to see certain verbiage from the doctor. So, I mean, there's so many things that as the veteran that you think you know, but you really don't. So, you know, find somebody, a VSO that can help you out, or ask Monica.
Yeah, you can reach out to #AskMonica, or you can email her at askmonica0@gmail.com. Let's play that commercial. Yeah, so reach out to askmonica0@gmail.com. Miss Monica Sanford is amazing. I'm actually in the works of talking with her husband, David, who is a lieutenant colonel, retired, United States Marine Corps, and we're going to have him on the show as well to talk about some of the things that he's doing outside of the military since he retired. Yeah, she's already got off, I think, Sam. So,
Okay.
But you can catch HomeFront Sitrep on Reese Across America Radio. I'm going to post a link right here, scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now. So you can actually go to reacheacrossamerica.org/radio and catch HomeFront Sitrep on Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern. You can find them on the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn app, or the Audacity app, or you can go to the link right there that's scrolling across the screen. But like I said, you can find HomeFront Sitrep on Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern. So let's play that commercial. Hey, it's Willis. Join Candace and I from HomeFront Sitrep on Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern on Reese Across America Radio. You can find Reese Across America Radio on the iHeartRadio app, the Audacity app, and TuneIn app. Search the word Reese. So yeah, check out Reach Across America Radio and listen to us on Thursday nights. Let's turn that off. And then Sam, you made this comment not too long ago. Guys, you're not alone out there. If you need to talk to somebody, make sure you reach out. Because we've all been there. Some way, shape, form, fashion. We've been through or gone through something similar to what you went through. So make sure you reach out. And it's about that time, Mr. Sam.
Yep. You still have worth. You still have value. No matter what you think, there's still people out there that love you and need you in their life. And, reach out to your buddies. You might be that voice that they need to hear.
You might be that stranger. And like we always say on Homefront Sitrep, stay safe out there. We got your six. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this show.
Suggestions and comments are always welcome.
Cannot wait to have another great show with y'all.
Don't forget you can find Homefront Sitrep on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Stay safe out there. I got your six.